Jai Hind everybody, I am Dr. Rashmi Sharma from Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College, teaching in Department of Information and Technology. Today we would be discussing one critical topic of project management and entrepreneurship, which runs in final year as a common subject in all the branches, that is project financing and its sources. So what all different finances we require and how we can get those particular finances. So main thing which we would be discussing it, what are the different sources of the funds which we want to start our startup or to start any business. So coming to the point, first of all, first thing which we have to do is we have to financially analyze our project. What all things do we require in financing that particular project? So first thing is we should have the estimated cost. So if estimation of the cost of project is there, approx, that if I am starting a company and I am developing a software which is new to this particular field, how many programmers would I require? What is the resources which I would require? So coming into that, I should have a overall estimated cost of that particular project. Then comes estimation cash flow. So how much cash do I have, or how much cash can I get from other debentures or from other persons who are ready, or another investors who are ready to invest in my project or my system. So cash flow is obviously what are the different cash which would be coming in. This cash flow is obviously in terms of monetary terms, like building is not a cash flow, the electricity is not a cash flow, the infrastructure or the furniture which you have is not the cash flow. But if somebody gives you 10 lakh rupees for which you can use that in your system, that becomes your cash flow. So what are the cash flows? What are the estimated rate of return, that is also called as ROR? Means if I am taking 10 lakh rupees from someone, and if I have to pay them back as approx with all the interest 11.5 lakh, then how much money do I am getting from the market when I am investing that money in my system or in my startup? Then comes application of all the decision rules. Obviously each and everything depends on the rules, decisions which we are taking. For example, if I am starting a business in winters and the product which I am developing, say that is a plastic bottle, disposable plastic bottle, that production of that plastic bottle doesn't require a temperature to be controlled in my production line. So I don't have to have the heaters or the blowers or the ACs installed there. So temperature controlling device in that particular production line or the production area is not required. So a decision to be taken that I won't install that particular thing. But same, if I'm a manufacturer of paneer, curd or milk, those are perishable goods. So I have to have a temperature controlled even when I'm having a storage of these particular commodities. So definitely I have to take a decision that I should have a refrigerator where I will, a big refrigerator or a temperature controller room where I will keep these particular things on a storage basis. So there are some of the decisions which we have to take because I am having that particular estimated cost. I have the cash flow, I know what are the rate of returns, so I have to take the decision that should I invest that particular finance or the cash which I have in that commodity or not. Then coming to this, what are the different estimated sources from where I can get this? This is a very broader aspect where I should say that we can get the finances from different sources. So I can have a long-term finance. The long-term finance is, I should see that we have the debt financing and we have the equity financing. I think everybody looking into this video sees the Shark Tank. That Shark Tank, they are the startups which are coming. They are running their startups. Obviously, they are running their companies which they are owning. They are earning some business from that particular startups also, and they are having some cash flow also. They are having some profits also. So I would take the example of Shark Tank. In Shark Tank, we have startups. All these startups have something to be produced. The production is to be there. They have some marketing. Obviously, marketing strategies are there. They have some sales. Okay. And then they have some profits also. And then they are coming to the Shark Tank with some rules or with some their conditions, so that they can get finance from the persons who are in those particular Shark Tank. So here I would take that particular as an example. There are two ways where I can get the two broader ways, and these broader ways are the older ways only, in which we can get the finance from different sources. First one is called as the debt. In this debt, you are taking a loan. You are taking a loan from somebody. Okay. These are two ways. One is the debentures and one is the loans. In debentures and the loans, obviously, we are taking money from someone. And when I'm taking a loan from someone, assume that I'm taking a loan from some bank. In that particular case, obviously, when we are having a startup, obviously we are having a business, then we go to the district financial corporation, or we go to the state financial corporations, or we go to the central financial corporation, and n number of schemes which are being run by our central government or by our Pradhan Mantri to invest that particular money given by the government, and you can give the output to them. Okay. But in this particular loan, what we are having, when I take a loan for starting my business, assume that I'm taking a loan from HDFC Bank. In that particular bank, I have to give them my idea. I have to tell them that I need some particular loan against this particular idea. And the day they disperse that particular loan, when they disperse this particular loan, the next month or after few months, the EMI, that is the equally monthly installment of that particular loan starts, means I have a liability to be performed after the loan is been dispersed. So when I'm taking a loan, I have an EMI to be given, and this EMI acts as a liability on which I have to pay. Obviously, assume if I'm taking a loan and I tell that at the 10th of every month, you can deduct that particular EMI from my so and so account. So that is a monthly basis, and that is the liability that I have to keep that much amount in my bank, so that this EMI doesn't jumps off and the bank doesn't comes and claims me that you have not paid the EMI. So in this particular case, I have my ownership, but I have taken loan from the bank. I have a liability to pay to the bank on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis, whatever the schemes which we have decided between me and the bank while we are taking that particular loan. Then comes the equity. Here this equity terms everybody might have heard in this particular Shark Tank. Equity is, I am giving some part of my business, or some part, in different terms I should say, some part of my business shares to someone else who is ready to invest in my business. Okay. That is, I am selling my shares to a specific person, and that person is purchasing that share, that is the equity, and lending me the amount which I am telling. But the difference between the loan, same in both the case, in the loans, in the equity, the same thing. I'm getting the loan from somebody else. Here we have written this is the insider's liability and the outsider's liability. Insider's liability means when I'm sharing some part of my shares, I'm making that person as a part of my company, as a part of my decision rules, which we have seen in this particular site. Sorry, which we have seen in this. The decision rules, that person becomes a part of decision rule. The main difference between the debt and the equity is, in debt, the ownership is with you, but you have a liability to be paid on a monthly basis. Whenever you have to take a decision, the ownership is on the person who is owning that particular organization. And in the equity, I have given some part of my shares to person who is willing to invest in my business. And how they would be willing? Looking into my sales, market, my production, all these things they would be looking into it, and they would be willing to invest in my business. When they are investing in my business, I have to give some percent share. Assume I have given 5% shares and took 10 lakh rupees from them. So they have an ownership in my business. They have an ownership. Here the ownership lies with the owner, single person who has started the business. Here now the ownership is with the person who has invested in your company also. Obviously, whenever you take a decision, you have to involve this shareholder also to take a decision. You are not the sole proprietor to take the decision, but while in this, you are the sole proprietor to take the decision. Here, when you are taking a loan, you have to pay back. Here, in equity, you don't have to pay back. But the another way of paying back is you have to involve that particular person in decision making. So here you have a liability of EMIs or paying back of the loan. Here you don't have a liability, but you are involving some another person to become a part of your company, and that person becomes a part in the decision rules also. So sole propriety doesn't lies with you when you are having the equity involved into it. So there are different ways, that is retained, preference and equity shares. Obviously the best way to do is to do in case of the equity shares, that you lend something. So you might have seen in this Shark Tank that we are giving 1% our shares at 10 lakh rupees. That is only 1% shares would be given, and you have to invest 10 lakhs into our business. So there are some of the deals. So these are long term financing. Obviously long term, because whenever you take a loan, you don't take a loan for 6 months or a 1 year. Obviously you have a tenure of 5 years, 10 years or 15 years. So that is a long term tenure. Even after some time, if you are getting a business boomed, you can prepay that particular loan. That depends on you. And similarly in equity also, you are involving that particular person who is investing or who is financing your organization into decision making. So you are having a long term relationship with that particular person. If your business from 10 lakh grows to 20 lakhs, again that person has a 5% share. When he was having a 10 lakh, only 5,000 was their share percent. Now the share percent increases because the value increases as the profit has gained. But in the loan, the amount is fixed. You are not giving that particular amount, except if I took a loan of 25 lakhs, the loan amount is fixed. That is 25 lakhs. Only the interest rate vary and the amount which I have to pay varies. The tenure may vary, the EMIs may vary, but in this equity, if you are gaining that particular thing, you are gaining the profit of that equity person also, because that becomes a part of your organization. Then the debt financing are obvious, usually the outsiders. As we considered, you can have a bank involved, you can have a debentures, a person who is ready, right? Like the crowdfunding, they are ready, but they don't want to become a part of your business. They only invest, and whenever you get the profit, you can return to them. So the funding agencies evaluate the project. Obviously they provide finance for the same with predetermined terms of returns. Here the returns and repayments terms are there, and the repayment schedule is also there on specific interest rate. The another name, when we have a bank, then we use a term as EMI. What would be the interest percent rate you are taking on some flexible rate or a fixed rate, so on and so forth. and the time limit to pay the debt is generally commensurate with the value of in the item and where you are investing. Obviously, the tenure for which you take that particular loan, as I told you, it is for 5 years or it is for 10 years or 15 years, that is fixed. So you have that tenure fixed, and according to that particular tenure, you have the value for that item. Obviously, if I am having a perishable good, like the as I told, the paneer or the cottage cheese, curd, yogurt, and the milk, then that particular item is a perishable item, and you would be having obviously loss and gain depending on the sale on a 3 days or a 4 days basis only. So in that particular case, the tenure for which you take this interest, or the tenure the bank gives you interest, or the debenture gives you the loan, is not much, because if they give you for 10 years and you are not ready to you are not able to run your business for more than 6 months, then they would obviously go into loss. So depending on the type of the item, the price of that particular item, that investors invest. Obviously, when you are using for gas stations or the petrol pumps, obviously for that, this particular value, the value of the item is more, and the tenure is also more, and amount they require is also more. So here we know what are the return schemes, what are the terms and conditions for the return, how you will repay. It's not compulsory that you pay on an EMI basis in these debentures. For the bank, it is compulsory that you usually pay in EMI basis, but for debentures, you can have for 6 months. I'm having my infrastructure ready. After I start gaining the business for 6 months, my business is running fine and I'm earning a profit of this much, then I would return your money with so and so interest rate. So there are some of the ways in which you can see these particular debentures, but you have to pay that particular amount back. The predetermined rate of interest is also there. It depends, it gets fixed at the time when you are taking that particular loan, even from the bank or the debentures. Then comes the debts, and then business and government bodies carry long-term debts in the term of loans in the bonds. The loans we have discussed, the bonds which you purchase for different companies, like we have Lombard bonds, ICICI bonds. So these different bonds also are a way to take loan from that particular organization. Loans are taken from institution, banks, and are paid back with an agreed interest rate. Obviously, that is being fixed at the time of the loan which you are taking. Bonds or debentures are similar to the loans, but are usually purchased by individuals and other businesses. When they want, if obviously, if you might have heard that if you own more than 49% of the bonds or the shares of a company, more than 49, then if you have 51% shares, then you become the owner of that particular company, and you are liquidating your amount by 49, giving to different individuals or the publics, or selling to somebody else. So bonds or the debentures are way in which individuals can purchase the bonds which you are purchasing, or other business persons to take the ownership of that particular business. The business may be running in advantage or for loss, and so and so. So there are two broad categories of the debts, the loans and the debentures. So loans are most common source of financing. You might have heard of loans: personal loan, home loans, so on and so forth, vehicle loans, and so on and so forth. There are several development banks and institutions and commercial banks providing finances on a predefined rate of interest. The repayment schedule is also predefined. Repayments are generally made in installments, which can be quarterly, semi-quarterly, or semi-annually, or annually. In terms of business, we have to pay on these, we can pay on these basis, but for when you're having a personal loan or a home loan, we usually pay on a monthly basis, that is EMI. Whereas interest payments is generally on quarterly basis in India, that is compound interest also. The interest which we calculated is compounded annually. There are various banks and institutions which provide, and some of the organizations which provide your finance for your businesses are, as I told you, you can have a central bank, or you can have a central bank, or a state bank, or a district bank. So here we are having some of the listing of the organizations which provide you finance for your businesses. So Central Financial Institute Development Bank. So these are IFCI, that is Industrial Finance Corporation of India. RIBI, that is Reconstruction Bank of India. RB is Reconstruction, I for Industrial as it is. And development banks like IDBI, Industrial Development Bank of India, obviously each and every here we see are having something related to industry in all these three. And other are the banks which are normal banks, that is ICICI Bank, SIDBI banks, and so on and so forth. So there are some central banks, obviously when you are having this industry basis, and if that industry is they have loans at different rates. Even the personal loan which you take up is on a higher rate as compared to the home loan. So there are different organizations which provide the industrial loans also. Then you have state financing corporations, that is SFS. So they have their states, major states, obviously each and every state now has their special schemes and special banks to give you loans on that, so that you can work on your own startups or new ideas and you can excel that particular state. So one is APSFA, that is Andhra Pradesh Financial Corporation, which is in Andhra Pradesh, and UPFC, that is the Uttar Pradesh Financial Corporation. So these are some banks of different states, one for Uttar Pradesh and one for Andhra Pradesh. Similarly, we have for different states also, different other states also, which finances for different organization. State Industrial Development Corporation. The role of this state industrial development corporations are SIDC. So the role of SIDC is not restricted for financing, but they are responsible for zones for industrial development and infrastructural facility. If they require some help, they are not expert in development or not expert in electricity, so they provide some help in that. So there are some particular banks, they give the loan also, but they help in development. Here the word is main is development for or the infrastructure facility of any of the organization or the startups which are in. So at Prithampura near Indore and Mandideep, that is near Bhopal, you have MPAKVM, that is Madhya Pradesh Audyogik Kendra Vikas Nigam. So this is the Nigam which helps to develop that particular industrial area near Indore, that is on Prithampura, and in Bhopal, near Bhopal, that is Mandideep. Similarly, we have MIDC, that is Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporation, GIDC, that is Gujarat Industrial Development Corporation, which have number of industrial area of that respective state. This industrial area, I think you might have seen, we have industrial area in our Ghaziabad or UP area also. So where the state industrial development, they help us in starting our businesses or starting up our industries also. Then commercial banks, all commercial bank finance long-term debt at the predefined rate of interest, and generally these are collateral security. These collateral securities, when we say that we have to keep something in turn of that particular bank. So when we take a massive amount of loan, so we have to keep our house or some jewelry or something else to take that particular loan. That is called as generally with a collateral security. And both nationalized and private commercial banks are playing a major role in financing agro industries and service products, because we have this particular thing as a upcoming industry, agro industry, that is the agriculture industry, mapping them with a sensor technologies, IoTs. It has become a upcoming zone or the zooming zone, booming zone of this particular industry. Then private financing companies and NBFC, that is the National Board Finance Corporations, are also providing long term loans for your projects. Debentures are obviously the loans that are usually secured and said to have either fixed or floating charges with them. Obviously, the loan has fixed charges and you have to pay them. And they are different from the loans, as loan is provided by a bank or an institution, and this debentures is provided by a public or by a ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल, और आई शुड से किसी सोसाइटी ने लोन दे दिया, या फिर एक वो लोग थे, ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल थे हु आर रेडी टू इन्वेस्ट इन योर प्रोजेक्ट विदाउट गेटिंग in terms of return, they have their excess amount and they help you out. So these are debentures are some of the people where you have this particular loan facility available. A secured debenture is one that is specially tied up with the financing of a particular asset, such as the building or the machines. So when you want that, you design our infrastructure. I would be running on that particular thing, on that particular infrastructure, and you design it. They own that particular thing, or they loan you, lease you that particular infrastructure, and you're using that infrastructure and developing that particular product. Just like the mortgage from a private house, or debenture holder has a legal interest in that asset, and the company cannot dispose it unless the debenture holder agrees to it. They have a tie-up unless and until they are not ready to pay that, and with the agreement of the person who has taken that thing, or given you the loan, both should get agreed, and then only you can sell off that particular debenture or the mortgage, building or the house which you have kept. If the debenture is of land or building, it can be called as the mortgage debentures. So debenture holder has the right to receive their interest payment before any dividend is payable to the shareholders. Obviously, if I'm getting an interest, I took a loan of, I told you, I took a loan of 10 lakh and I got an interest of 2 lakh. My income has now become 12 lakhs rupees. So I have to pay, because I got an interest of profit of 2 lakh. Keeping amount all those particular expenses which I had done, I got an exclusive profit of 1 lakh rupees. In this 1 lakh rupees, if I don't give my shareholders the dividend, because when you take when you have a public limited, then you have to give the profit portion to your shareholders also. So you cannot give this particular amount to your shareholders, but you have to pay off to your, I have to pay off to my debentures from where I have taken that particular loan against that property. If I took 10 lakh loans, then I have to, if I pay this 1 lakh, then 9 lakh is left along with the interest, whatever we have decided on to. This is the principal amount. So even if the company makes a loss, it still has to pay its interest charges. If I go in loss, then I have to pay, because on 10 lakhs, if I took interest and they are telling that I have to pay 11 lakh, then approximately we have some deduction of the principals and the interest, and I would be left with somewhat 9.5 lakhs of the principal amount, and 75 or 50 0.5 lakhs for the interest amount. So that is something which we have to calculate. Even we are running that business in loss, we have to pay the interest. We don't pay this principal amount, but 1 lakh rupees interest which we have to pay that particular amount in installments. That is the thing which we do in debentures. But in EMI, even our business is running in loss, we have to pay full EMI. We cannot only pay this particular interest. So EMI is an combination of the EMI. When we take loans, it is a combination of your principal plus your interest. But in debentures, even if it is going in loss, and in debentures, we only pay, only interest is being paid when you are running in loss. That is the difference. Okay, so difference between loan and debentures. If the business fails, the debenture holder will be preferential creditors and will be entitled to the repayment of all their money before the shareholders receive anything. So if your business is running in loss, as I told, so even to the bank you have to pay the principal and interest. So if I sell my company off, and whatever amount if I get, हम कहते हैं ना दिवालिया निकल गया, and when we take that particular, we sell off our company, and the amount which we have to pay that particular bank, the whole the principal amount along with the interest. Or even if we waive off also, then the interest which is being for, if I took for a tenure of 10 years, and if I prepay into 5 years, then also I have to pay the interest of 5 years. Here when we are running in loss, I have to pay only the interest. I don't have to the pay principal. My principal of 10 lakh is as it is. Okay, after 5 years I say that I am not able to run my business, and now I want to waive off everything. So when I'm selling this, I won't give anything to my shareholders. First of all, the money which is coming back would be given to the debentures. When their debentures goes off, everything goes off, then the remaining amount which is coming would be given to the shareholders. So I think the basic difference between loan and debentures is clear. In loan, we have to pay principal plus interest, even our business is running in loss. Here we have to pay only interest. When we are waiving off our company, for also we have to pay principal and interest. Here first we will pay to the debentures who has invested in our company, then we will give to the shareholders. So it provides safety to the holders of the debentures, obviously the holders of the debentures. यहाँ we have a exception case also, like विजय माल्या भाग गए कि I'm not able to pay the loans, और नीरव मोदी भाग गए कि I'm not able to pay the loans. They have the money, they have sold off their business, they took all this particular, because they were not having debentures into it, they took a loan. Okay, they were not having any debentures into it, they took a loan, or then they ran off from the country. So they have not paid this amount to the bank, and they have that particular amount, and they're living fine in different countries. So with the debenture, you have this particular option. Then equity financing, although owners of equity instruments are the owners of the company, it is actually equity shareholders are the real owners of the company. There are various sources of equity financing. One is the preferences share, equity shares, and the return earnings. We will looking into all these three particular things. Equities, preferential shareholders offer their owner preferences over ordinary shareholders. Obviously, preference shares, those who purchase those particular preference shares, they have more of their preferences on the ownership as compared to your ordinary shareholders. And there are two major difference between the ordinary and the first is the preference shareholders are entitled to a fixed dividend, but the ordinary shareholders are not. Fixed dividend means each and every month they would be getting some amount even though the company is not running into profit. But for the ordinary shareholders, they would get the when the company is running into profit, then only they would get that dividend. So there is a basic difference between preference shareholders. They would get dividend even the company is running in loss. But for the ordinary shareholders, they won't be getting anything unless and until company is running into profit, then only they would be getting the dividend. Preference shareholders cannot normally vote at general meetings. Preference shareholders, obviously, they are they are a part of the decision making, but they don't vote, because whenever voting is there, that who should become the CEOs or who can take the decision, so they don't vote as a preference shareholders because they become the one of the part of the ownerships. Then comes the equity. The equity shareholders are the true owners of the company, obviously, because they are getting the dividend, they are getting the returns of the investment which they have done, even the company or the industry is running into loss. They have the voting rights and right on all the remainder profits after paying interest of the debts and the preferential dividend. Who owns the Reliance industry? Obviously, everybody, we all know that the Mukesh Ambani owns it. No, he is just holding majority stakeholders. Obviously, as I told, and is controlling the company. So we have 100% shareholders, 100% like you can have 100 amount. Then they start giving their shares to different person. A person who owns more than 50%, that is 51% shares, more than 50, because when we divide into two equal parts, 50-50. So more than 50, even if you hold 50.5 also, not on 51, it should be, the share should be greater than 50%, then you become the owner of that particular organization. So he is controlling that particular company because he has more than 50% shares. Obviously, if you go into the share market, you will say, I have 10,000 shares of Reliance. Another person will say, I have 1 lakh shares. So they are the shareholders, maybe in terms of debentures, maybe in terms of preference shareholders, they are a part of that particular company. They are not their normal shareholders. Maybe if they are purchasing some preference shares, if Ambani is giving you preference shareholder relationship, then definitely you can take a part in decisionship or become a part of the ownership. But when you have a ordinary share, then you only get dividend when the company is running in profit, and the share of the prices also goes high. So the all shareholders of Reliance Industry are the owner of the company, obviously, or because they all comprises of adding all of them, it would become 100. So equity shares, the equity shares are generally not subjected to buyback. Once purchased, you cannot sell them off. Okay, Under no circumstances can an equity shareholders be forced for the buyback. Buyback can never be forced by this, and returns to the shareholders are in the form of dividend, right shares and bonus shares. When like in the Shark Tank, that thing you are given 1% equity, you become a 1% equity shareholder. So whenever you are given dividend, so if assume that I have 10 first, for the first lot we have given 10,000 shares, so 1% of this is 100 shares, so I have 1%, okay, and on this 1% shares I am telling that after 2 years you get a dividend, and dividend is again in the terms of share, that the dividend would be 0.02% of the shares. So 0.02 is 100 into 0.02 upon 100, that is 2 shares. Now you own total of 102 shares. So your share amount increases, your involvement or your you have all those particular dividend or the bonus again in terms of the shares, not in terms of money. For the ordinary shareholder, you can get in terms of money also. So when you are an equity shareholder, obviously the bonus, the dividend, you start owning more, that is in terms of the money. So generally the return expected by shareholder is in the form of the increased market prices. Then future aspect, profit reserves and all the aspects of the company are depicted by its share prices. The value of the company is determined by market price, MP upon share into number of shares issues. So issued share. So this is how we calculate the value of any company. Then comes the retained earnings. So retained earnings is the cheapest equity source of capital, where we declare dividends equal to their earning. They retain some portion of their earnings for various reasons. So one of the major reason is profit aspects. They reserve it for new projects for which they require the funding. So these were the long-term processes by which I get these particular financings. So the first one was your debentures or the loans, or the diagram which I would again take you back to this is coming to the end of this video. We have long-term sources. In this we have the debt and the equity. In the debt and equity, in depth we came to know as the debentures and the loans. Obviously debentures, even you are running in loss, you would get the dividend, but in the loan we have to pay the EMI, which is the addition of your principal plus interest, and here if you are running in loss, you only pay the interest. In equity, you have some particular shares or a portion which is taken into decision making. You have the shares, that percent of the decision making part depends on the person who is investing in your company. So you have 3 different pairs: equity, preferences and retained share. So in the next video, we would be looking about the short-term finances which the government provide us. Coming to the end of this video, thank you for this.